Today on Locked On Penguins, the future is now. Hunter and I are going to recap the Penguins' 5-4 loss to the St. Louis Blues in overtime. Then we will get you set for a weekend back-to-back against one of the best teams in the National Hockey League and one of the worst. All that and more right after this.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Patrick Damp. You can follow me across all social media platforms at Synonym for Wet. Joined today from the airport, a travel cast for my co-host Hunter Hodes. You can follow him on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. You can give our show's Twitter account a follow at LO_Penguins. And of course, you know it. We appreciate you making us part of your daily routine. Don't forget that we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube and the Roku channel. Plus, if you're following us on YouTube, do us a solid, hit that notification button. That way you can be among the first to know when we drop our daily Monday through Friday episodes. Before we jump into last night's game, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $200 in bonus bets if their first $5 bet wins. So, Hunter, this is how I want to do this today because I know you are up against it. You're going to be here for the first segment. Then you got to get on a plane and get yourself back to Pittsburgh. So, really quick before we get into the fun part, because it's a Friday episode, let's start with the negative and then we will talk about the positive, because I know that's what everybody's signing up for. They want to hear about the big news out of last night, but let's start here. I'm going to start at the end. I'm going to Quentin Tarantino this. I'm going to start at the end and then we'll go back to the beginning and tell the rest of the story. Penguins lose 5-4 in overtime to the St. Louis Blues on a questionable penalty call on Kris Letang in overtime. And I'm of two minds for this. One, absolutely a questionable call, a little bit ticky-tack, probably shouldn't have been called. But this has been a problem for the past few weeks with Kris Letang. His game has been pretty bad. And the crux of it, and I noticed this a bunch last night, is that his skating is just not what it once was. He was getting beat wide quite a few times. And if there's one thing about Kris Letang that never used to happen, was getting beaten to the side. And last night, even when he did, not last night, for his career, if he got beaten wide, he was able to make up for it in 2 to 3 strides. Now, that's just not happening. And that's what that penalty was born from. He got beaten wide and had to kind of reach in and go after the player that beat him. And while it was a tic-tacky call, usually Kris Letang was able to make up with that with his speed. And last night, that didn't happen.
Yeah, man, his legs are completely gone. And yes, Pat, this is the first time we're doing an airport cast. I feel like I'm like Elliot Friedman right now of the 32 Thoughts podcast, walking around through the airport. No one has tried to go in the background, thankfully, but that call last night was pathetic. I'm sorry. That was not a good call. I see that slash go uncalled 20 times a game. That's BS. Hopefully the intercom, by the way, is not that loud while you're editing and stuff. I apologize. They're probably getting some people to their gates in the airport, but I see that type of slash go uncalled 20 times a game. But that's when you decide to call it in overtime. I know Letang did not have a good game. You cannot call that in that situation. You got to let the players play in that one. But you said it about Letang, man. His legs are completely cooked now. You saw him try to deflect the puck out of midair, Pat, on another one of the goals earlier in the game where it's like, what are you thinking there? The decision-making right now is really bad. He still has 3 more years left on that contract. I love the guy to death, but it's been really sad seeing his game go this downhill this quickly this season for someone that has done so much for this organization since coming up to the Penguins. It's just really unfortunate. But, we've discussed this a lot, Pat. Father Time is undefeated, and you're seeing it really play out right now. But the big news, of course, Rutger McGroarty and Villie Koivunen, they were both outstanding once again last night. Rutger McGroarty, I love the little play that he made along the boards to get that puck to Brian Rust, won that board battle, gets it to Rust, and then he does his move that sent the Blues goaltender to the shadow realm. Absolutely no chance for Hofer on that play. And then the goal that he scored, man, he's been doing that all season in Wilkes-Barre. Getting to the front of the net, getting those greasy goals. There's a video on Twitter showing his mom literally crying after. Just an amazing moment. And to cap off a great night for McGroarty, he continues to look like a completely different player than what we saw at the beginning of the season. I thought his decision-making was really strong. I thought his skating continued to look really good, and he got rewarded. And I also loved Mike Sullivan putting them out there on the 6-on-5. You want these two kids to learn how to play in high-leverage situations. You want them to learn how to play in high-stakes games. This is how you do it. And I love that he's doing that. Great job by Sully on that.
Yeah, you pulled the 8 Mile B Rabbit final battle thing on me. I think you knew where I was going to go with that, where I was going to come out and say, real tough night for the Mike Sullivan hates young players crowd, because not only did he put them out on the 6-on-5 at the end of the game and was rewarded for the decision, as Koivunen gets the puck to McGroarty, and McGroarty makes no mistake and scores. So McGroarty gets his first NHL goal, his first multi-point game. Koivunen gets his first NHL point. So big night for both of them. But it wasn't just the 6-on-5. He was using them in all situations, 5-on-5, power play, penalty kill. It was a night where these guys were given a big role. And for the second straight game, they lived up to the billing. Now, I'm not going to pop the champagne and say the future is here and get out of the way, old men, but this is a good start. And I want to see what happens through training camp and into next year, because we still very much are in the adrenaline part of their NHL journey. Obviously, McGroarty had some experience early in the year. He wasn't used as heavily because it was more of a necessity due to injury. No offense to McGroarty. I think he's going to blossom into one very good NHL player. But now this is still a momentum area for them. They are basking in the glow of being in the show. They're excited to be here. They're really playing with emotion and raw adrenaline because they got to prove themselves. What I want to see is throughout the rest of this run, because it feels like they're going to be here for the rest of the season, how they do over the next couple of weeks, and then what happens in training camp in early next year. Because yes, this team is not going to the Stanley Cup playoffs, but they're technically not eliminated. So while the games really don't matter, they want to show that they can make a difference. So they have that kind of heightened emotional state, and that's what it's called for right now. But when you get to game 1 of 82 and you're starting a season, how are they going to play? That's not me pumping the brakes and saying, don't be excited. Absolutely be excited. They played great, but let's not start to act like, oh, they are fully formed products. There's going to be dips. There's going to be slumps. There's going to be bad games. But for now, the returns are very good, very early.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? McGroarty, I felt like, was the best player on the ice last night. Wasn't even close to me. I thought he was great in all three zones. I want to see what Koivunen looks like if Malkin can come back at some point this season. I know he's on the road trip right now. They have Dallas coming up. They have Chicago coming up this weekend on the back-to-back. So my hope is that we can get Malkin and Koivunen together just so I can see how they are. I think that would be a really nice match for them. But, hey, this is a really good start for 2 games. And I want Sully to keep deploying them in these high-stakes situations, keep putting them out there against some of these top players around the league. Dallas is a very big test, especially with now they have Rantanen. They're playing really good hockey right now. Throw them to the wolves against them, and throw them to the wolves against all these teams down the stretch. Like, iron sharpens iron, man. Like, that's the thing I come back to when I think about this. So I'm really happy with how they're playing. I liked Connor Duer's game last night as well. That goal that he scored, he's a feisty little fella. Like, he's played really well since coming over from Toronto. I like seeing him get rewarded there. Sidney Crosby got a point. We love that. Ricard Raquel gets his 33rd goal, one more from tying his career high of 34 goals. I know they didn't win last night, but with how many positives to come out of this game, Pat, feels like they kind of did win, honestly, with how great the kids were. Sidney Crosby, Ricard Raquel. Hell, even a loss helps their draft position. So in a lot of ways, this team won last night.
Yeah, I would agree. And I say it on the show all the time. Obviously, no real moral victories in professional sports, because at the end of the day, professional sports is all about winning. But given where this team is, where it wants to go, that's about as good as it could have gone last night. You get great games from your young players, your big time contributors, unfortunately, outside of Kris Letang, played pretty well. And the last note I'll make, and I don't want to end it on a sour note, but it's just, we would be remiss if we didn't mention it. I can't really get mad at Tristan Jarry for any goals last night. I think a lot of it more, and I wrote this down in my notes, it was defense breaking down. I think for the most part, the Penguins were actually pretty good defensively, but a lot of the Blues goals, I think you can kind of directly attribute to the defensemen on the Penguins either made some poor decisions, got beaten, or just didn't do the fundamental things to keep a goal from happening. So yeah, maybe you can say one or two of them, a save would be nice, but at the end of the day, it wasn't the Tristan Jarry that we've seen most of the season, where you look at one or two of his goals and go, well, everybody did everything right. What the hell were you doing?
He was peppered a lot in the second period. I mean, the Blues, you could kind of tell in the first period, Pat, they weren't taking the Penguins seriously, which is kind of weird. Like, here comes the intercom again. But it's kind of weird to me because the Penguins beat them pretty handily a couple weeks ago before they started this long winning streak. So you'd think they would take them seriously. Penguins were going out there and blitzing them in the first period. The second period, the Blues are like, okay, now we got to wake up here. They did. The Penguins had some bad defensive breakdowns. I thought Jarry kept them in it a little bit in the third period, had no chance on the game when going overtime. I still can't believe they made that call, by the way. Absolutely ridiculous. And if there's one thing I did want to end this on, was that the Penguins played their asses off last night. They really did. They showed that fight, especially in the third period, Pat. They were down 4-2. They easily could have been like, you know what? Let's just, throw in the towel here. Half a period to go. Who cares? Nope. 4-3 on the power play. Boom. Rutger McGroarty gets the game-tying goal right in front of the net, late in regulation. I love the continued fight from this team, even though we know they're not making the playoffs.
Absolutely. We've been saying it all year. It's fine if they lose. It's fine if you get beaten by a better team, but show the fight. And they fought all night long, really kept themselves in it. And we love to see that, not just because it's a good, entertaining product to watch, but because it's a good sign for the years to come. But that is going to do it for the first segment. Hunter, appreciate it, because I know you got to go catch a flight. So thank you for finding the time in the airport. He will be back on Monday when we recap this weekend's games. I will be back for the final two segments of this episode to get you set for the Dallas Stars on Saturday and then the Chicago Blackhawks on Sunday. Okay, we'll be back to preview this weekend's games, but first we've got to tell you about today's first sponsor, and that is 5 Hour Energy. Daylight savings snuck up on us once again, and if you're feeling that lost hour of sleep, 5 Hour Energy has your back. That extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you just need a little energy boost to power through. Whether you're staying up late watching the NCAA tournament, squeezing in a round of golf after work, or just trying to keep up with your busy day, 5 Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. I have been all over the map with my work schedule, as well as trying to keep myself in shape, watch the Penguins, spend time with my girlfriend and family. And when I need that boost, man, 5 Hour Energy, it's right there for me. Absolutely love it. So if you want to get your hand on some 5 Hour Energy, head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, and peach mango. You can even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack and have it delivered right to your door. Need one now? You can grab a 5 Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. You know it. I know it. They are everywhere. So stock up today and stay energized. All right, welcome back. It's the Friday edition of Locked On Penguins. Shout out to Hunter Hodes for taking the time. We all know how busy the airport can be. It is an absolute pain at times. So appreciate him being so dedicated to our community, to step in and do a little bit of a recap of the Blues game from the airport. We will have him back normally, like we always do on Monday. He'll be back in his office in Pittsburgh, but enough about that. Let's talk about this weekend's back-to-backs, which begin on Saturday in Dallas when they take on one of the best teams in the National Hockey League, the Dallas Stars. That game will be a nationally televised game on ABC at 3 o'clock in Dallas. And I don't think I need to remind everybody how bad the first matchup went against the Dallas Stars earlier this season in November. The Penguins were absolutely smoked by the Stars. It was a near no-show for the Penguins. Funny enough, when that game was happening, I was actually in an airport like Hunter was today, and it was the Dallas-Fort Worth airport. So I got to watch the Penguins' first period no-show while sitting at a gate myself. So talk about some full circle moments there. But this is without a doubt one of the best teams in the National Hockey League. They are going from taking on the hottest team in the National Hockey League in the St. Louis Blues to one of the best teams in the NHL, and the Dallas Stars don't have as big of a winning streak as St. Louis did going into last night's game, but they are currently on a 7-game winning streak themselves. So they have been extremely hot down the stretch, and they are part of the Mikko Rantanen saga. He goes from Colorado to Carolina, then Carolina to Dallas, and he has been a seamless fit in Dallas. He has played 13 games for them, recording 13 points already. So that is just another weapon in Dallas's arsenal. And this is, like I keep saying, one of the best teams. And for the Penguins, this is going to have to be another one of those games this season that Hunter and I have discussed quite a lot. It is a game where they can't afford to take a lot of risks. They are going to have to play a very disciplined game, because you look up and down Dallas's roster. Right now, they have, if my math is correct, which you guys know, my math is skeptical and maybe not that great at best to pretty bad at worst, but they have right now 8 forwards with 40 points or more on the season. So they get scoring up and down their lineup. This is a team that has not just a very good attack, but a very balanced attack. It's a team that, whether it's their first line, their fourth line, you name it, they are going to be able to put the puck in the net. They are going to have you under siege for 60 minutes. So for the Penguins, this has to be, frankly, just a disciplined, hardworking game. And I think we have seen that from the Penguins over the past month or so. There have been obviously some duds in there. We know what happened against Buffalo. We know what happened against Tampa Bay. They no-showed, got embarrassed. But outside of that, Hunter said it at the end of the first segment. I agree with him. This is a team that fights. This is a team that knows that they're probably not going anywhere. Probably is putting it lightly. We know they're not going to the Stanley Cup playoffs, but this is a team that, despite all of that, we have said it before, the Sidney Crosby record has been achieved. He has already made his history. The young guys are here. They're giving this team a little bit of a jolt. They're giving this team a little bit of a spark, which they so desperately need. And now they can play spoiler. You look at where Dallas is in the standings. They are chasing the Winnipeg Jets for the top of the Central Division, and they're all of 4 points back as I record this on Friday morning. So they're in a battle to get home ice advantage at the very least through the first 2 rounds, and the Penguins can play spoiler here. That is good. This is going to be a big 2 points for the Dallas Stars on Saturday afternoon, and the Penguins can play that role of spoiler. And I think it's going to start again with these young guys. You have seen it from both Rutger McGroarty and Villie Koivunen. They have not looked out of place since they came to the team on Sunday against Ottawa. And obviously we saw it last night against St. Louis. They both have played very well. They have fit into top 6 roles. They have, now we know they can produce. And you look at a lot of their decision making, it has been up to par for the NHL. So this is big for them. And this is a chance now where if I'm Mike Sullivan, keep throwing them into the fire. We don't need to shelter them because you're playing a great team. You don't need to protect them from certain matchups. Just keep deploying them the way you've been deploying them and see what happens, because we are playing for the future now. But end of the day, this is going to be a tough game. And to put into perspective how good the Dallas Stars are right now, they are dealing with some injuries. They are without Tyler Seguin, who had hip surgery late in 2024. He, at the time, was slated to be out 4 to 6 months. They likely will not get him back unless they go on a very deep playoff run, which, if I were a betting man, I would say they're probably going to go on a pretty deep run. And away from that, you also are without one of the best defensemen around in Miro Heiskanen. He is also out, and they've kind of been non-committal on how long he's going to be out. They hope to get him back for the playoffs, but we will not see him on Saturday. He is dealing with a knee injury and had to get knee surgery. So again, that's another player, huge contributor that they're without, but they continue to chug right along. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention something that you got to talk about when you talk about the Dallas Stars, and that is Jason Robertson. This is a player that, as me and my college buddies would always say when we noticed a very good, young, talented player, this kid is the absolute truth. 33 goals, 77 points. He is going to be a force for a long time. They found a great player in this kid. He is one of the best players, not only on their team, but in the league. So you got to find a way to limit him. You have to limit your mistakes against the Dallas Stars. If you give them even a little bit of an opportunity, they are going to make you pay. So this is a huge test for the Penguins. I liked their game quite a bit against St. Louis before McGroarty got his first and tied it late. I wrote in my notes, it was another case of the Penguins playing fairly well. They were just playing a better team. This is going to be another one of those games where I just want to see good effort. I want to see them working hard. I want to see them pushing back. And who knows? We know how the NHL goes. 82-game season. The best teams usually come out at the end of it, but throughout those 82 games, anybody can beat anybody. This is going to be a massive test for the Penguins on Saturday afternoon, but that is going to do it for the second segment. When we come back, the Penguins will go from playing one of the best teams in the National Hockey League to playing one of the worst in the Chicago Blackhawks. I'll get you set for that game when I come back right after this. So stick around. We'll talk about the Blackhawks and close out the show. But first, we got to tell you about today's last sponsor, and that is FanDuel. The NCAA tournament is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when their first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to bet on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who is cutting down the nets. FanDuel, if your bracket's busted, they're giving you the opportunity to stay in on the action. You know that tournament games are happening basically every single day, so there's always something exciting to bet on. So visit FanDuel.com to get on the college hoops action all tournament long. That's FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. 2-1. All right, welcome back to the Friday edition of Locked On Penguins. I am Patrick Damp. Hunter is catching a flight. He was here for the first segment, so I am closing out the show. And we just talked about the Penguins playing the Dallas Stars on Saturday afternoon. And then after that game, they will travel to Chicago to play an early evening game against the Chicago Blackhawks at 6 o'clock. That'll be a Sportsnet Pittsburgh game, so you can catch that locally after they will be national on Saturday afternoon on ABC against the Dallas Stars. And what a polar opposite back-to-back the Penguins have this coming weekend. They go from taking on one of the best teams, not just in the Western Conference, but in the National Hockey League, to taking on one of the worst teams in the entire league in the Chicago Blackhawks. And the place to start is Connor Bedard. There are a lot of comparisons right now with the Chicago Blackhawks and the San Jose Sharks. You look at the Sharks right now, they're not a very good team either. They're only all of 2 points ahead or behind, of the Blackhawks. And obviously Macklin Celebrini, Will Smith, and a whole cast of players on the San Jose Sharks have been a really exciting development for Sharks fans. That, to me, is the biggest difference between the two teams. Connor Bedard is not at all a bust. He's not a bad player. He is going to be one of the best players for the foreseeable future in the National Hockey League. The big difference now is that the Chicago Blackhawks do not have anything to surround him with. He is a man on an island. You pull up Daily Faceoff and you look at who he is paired with on the top line. He is between Ryan Donato and Ilya Mikheyev. And then when you look at any sort of injuries that have happened for the Chicago Blackhawks, there really isn't anybody big missing. This isn't a case of Bedard's preferred line mate or one of his young players who goes right around with him is no longer in the lineup. Chicago is still at rock bottom for their rebuild. They are still a team that is bottoming out. They are compiling the young talent. They are compiling the draft picks. So it's going to be a couple of seasons before we see the Chicago Blackhawks able to get back near the top of the league, because they're simply just Connor Bedard and a mishmash of random players that they need to have on their roster, because that's what's required of the NHL. So at this point, for the Penguins, you have to take advantage of a team that's having an even more miserable season than you are. And this is their first meeting. They will play them twice in a row. They will play them, obviously, Sunday, and then they will play them again at PPG Paints Arena on Tuesday next week. So this is a good chance for the Penguins to pick up a few points. I know we want the Penguins to get a better draft position. We want them to pick higher in this summer's draft. But really, at the end of the day, you want to have these young guys playing somewhat meaningful hockey. And if you're able to really boost their confidence against a team like the Chicago Blackhawks, this is the perfect time for them to do that. One of the bright spots, however, for the Chicago Blackhawks was they made a trade with the Florida Panthers to send Seth Jones into the Eastern Conference on the defending Stanley Cup champions. In return, they get goaltender Spencer Knight, and he has been pretty damn good for the Blackhawks through 10 games. He has posted several good starts, including against some very good teams, 2 quality starts against the Avalanche, 2 quality starts against the Los Angeles Kings, a good start against Utah, and he has an .892 save percentage. On the surface, not all that impressive, not really that great of a save percentage, but when you put it into the context of it being the Chicago Blackhawks and a very bad team, he's doing quite well for a pretty bad team that is not playing very well in front of him. And he's only 23 years old. So this could very well be their goaltender of the future, which we have seen this with several rebuilding teams throughout the NHL. They get the horses up front, they get the defensemen on the back end, and then they can't figure out goaltending. They're just trying to figure out who is going to be their guy. And early returns from Spencer Knight are very good. So this is a team that is still, like I said, at rock bottom of their rebuild. So if you're the Penguins, you have to take advantage of that. You have to go in and you have to be ruthless. You have to take it to this team. You have to give them a huge fight to make it so you can get a couple big points. So curious to see what happens in these 2 games, because we saw it against Buffalo. Penguins played a pretty bad team. They no-showed. They got completely boat raced by that team. We can't see a repeat of that against Chicago in these two upcoming games. I really want to see Rutger McGroarty, Villie Koivunen, even Kolyachonok and Connor Timmins and Connor Dewar, as well as Philip Tomasino. I want to see them given a little bit more runway to perform, because if you're playing a team of this magnitude that is this low in the standings, put the saddle on some of your young guys, take some of the pressure off of your Sidney Crosbys, Brian Rusts, Kris Letang, Rickard Rakell, those guys. Obviously, I want to see those young guys get some time with them, but I want to see these young guys play a prominent role against a pretty bad team. So 2 big games for the Pittsburgh Penguins this weekend: Dallas on Saturday, Chicago on Sunday. Hunter will be back, thankfully, to break down both of those games, as well as get you ready for the week ahead when we come back on Monday. But for Hunter Hodes, who's hopefully having a very safe flight, I'm Patrick Damp. Thank you as always for tuning in. We will be back with a brand new episode for you on Monday.